Jay, why don't you explain what happened in that first
Yeah,
session?
yeah, sure. Yeah, no, you threw me under the bus, and it was the best thing you could have ever done. When we got in, you introduced yourself, and we started to sit down, and you basically told me to shut up and let her talk, and so she did. And the entire time, it was like a 2-on-1 cage match where I was just pinned down and taking punch after punch. And I remember leaving and thinking to myself, like, what just happened? This is not what I expected. And you called. You said, okay, that went well. I'm like, how did that go well? Like you just said, like, I had to do that. Otherwise, there was no way she was going to sit down and there was no way she was going to talk. She had to feel like I was on her side and she had to feel like she was being heard.
Exactly. Validated. Hey, with the plethora of podcasts out there, I want to start by thanking you for choosing me. This pod is for the individual who is curious about moving through life differently. Each week, I interview expert guests who may change your perspective on your relationships, your finances, and your health. And if you change, the world will change too. All from tuning in. Enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone. Today I am so excited because I have a past client with me. And I think it's very important to have, my clients on from time to time because these are real people going through real stressors in life. And let's face it, everybody loves a story. And my goal is to, open people's eyes to what therapy can do for them. And therapy, if you know me, I never want people to think that therapy means that they're broken. Therapy is something bad. I mean, honestly, therapy opens up your world. And I've seen a therapist. I've had my kids see therapists. So yeah. Well, today, I'm going to be honest here. This is all anonymous. So I am just going to call my client Jay. And Jay is going to start off by telling us his story. So welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Jay, first of all, how long ago was it that you came to see me? You probably have a better recollection than I do.
No, I wish I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
not
say
sure.
it's over 5 years for sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I must say that I'm very fond of Jay because he has referred, a few more clients to me since he's seen me. And this is very typical in my world, which, I love the loyalty of my clients. They, to say that they don't necessarily need to come back to see me, but they trust me enough to refer good friends. And I love that. So let's get into what brought you to come and see me.
Well, um, I guess very, very shortly, within days before first seeing you, I had found out that my wife had an affair with somebody that she had worked with. And I had reached out to a good friend of mine who had been through a similar thing. And he had incredible success after coming to see you and immediately referred me to you, said that I would not regret it. And sure enough, I didn't. No, I think I contacted you within minutes of getting your number and saw you within a couple of days.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, which brings to mind, when I do get those calls from men, it's one or two things. I mean, I hear it in the voice right away, the desperation, the grief, the anxiety, and it's like one or two things. Either their wife has said, "I'm done," and wants to exit the relationship, or there's been an affair. So my heart goes out because, I mean, this has never happened to me personally, but I can't imagine the amount of betrayal, bewilderment, um, right? Like when you go back to that time, I mean, not that I want to bring up past hurts and emotions,
No,
but why don't you describe what it felt like in that moment that you found out?
uh, I had an idea,
Mm,
or I shouldn't say that. I didn't have an idea that something was going on. I had been sick for a bit, and like really sick, and it started while I was in hospital. Um, and we were clearly having a bit of a tough time. I mean, she was having to kind of single parent throughout that entire time that I was sick. And so, when I did first find out, I remember we'd put the kids to bed, and I'd gone up into the bedroom, and she was there and said she had to talk to me, and she was just quiet. And somehow I just immediately knew what it was, and I knew exactly who it was that she had had the affair with. And yeah, it was just shock. I remember before we got married, it was a condition of the church that we went to premarital counseling. And I remember sitting in the pastor's house during it, and he said, let's talk about infidelity. And he said, what are your thoughts? And I said, oh, I absolutely would have an affair. And he sat back shocked, and my wife sat back shocked and kind of said, like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I think it's about eliminating the possibilities, and just not putting myself in a position where it could potentially happen. And that's kind of what I did my entire marriage, and never ever put myself in a spot where I could develop an attraction to somebody else. And
mm,
but I mention this not because of that, but because of the fact that out of the two of us, I always figured if something ever happened, it would be my fault. It would be something that I did. Um, and that it would be me that had the affair. And I never would have anticipated her having an affair ever. It didn't cross my mind. I mean, I wouldn't have married her if I did, though. But so when it came, it was mostly shock. There
mm,
was a lot of anger, but it was also a lot of feeling deeply responsible for it. Just because when I was sick, obviously I wasn't able to give her what she needed, and she was the only one at the time that was able to really work, and she was doing everything, and we had little kids, and it was or we had a little kid, and there was a lot on her at that time. And prior to the affair, I knew about this guy, and I kind of talked to her repeatedly, saying, I don't think this guy's got great intentions. And she was just adamant that it's just a friend, just a friend. And there was this one time before the affair where he bought her flowers, and I was like, oh, come on, like, guy at your work doesn't buy you flowers. And she said, oh no, he bought some for his wife. And so he knew that I liked flowers too. And so he just picks them up for me. And I remember thinking that that was ridiculous, and telling her that there was no way that that was the case. And of course, I trusted that she wouldn't do anything. And so when she kind of had that look on her face and was sitting in the bed and told me,
You knew.
yeah, I knew exactly what happened, who it was. Um, and I wanted to know all the details, and I wanted to know everything that had happened, and she wasn't willing to talk about it. She was done with the marriage, though, too, at that point. She did not want to be with me. She was adamant that she was in love with him. She wanted to be with him. That was it. And this was not, I did not recognize the person that I had married at this point. It wasn't her. It was like I was talking to somebody completely different.
Mm.
And I called my friend, immediately, that I knew had recently kind of gone through a similar scenario, and I just needed that kind of advice and backup. Like, what do I do? And he knew exactly what to do. He said, "Call Luella."
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I did. And she had no interest in going to therapy at all. She was done. She just wanted to pack bags and finalize a divorce at that point. And that made no sense to me. It didn't click, and it didn't feel like it was her. So I basically I lied to her, but I had booked the appointment with you, and I said to her, okay, well, if you don't want to work on things, that's fine, but let's do this for the kids so that we can at least get some help figuring out how to co-parent better. And I positioned it as, instead of coming to you to try and work on our marriage, because she wasn't having any of that at that point. And so I said, instead of coming to you to work on the marriage, let's go to you to try to figure out all of the emotions behind this so that it has less of a traumatic impact on the kids.
Brilliant on your part.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, how does she say no to that, right?
Exactly.
So she said yes. And I mean, we took separate cars. She didn't really want to come in. We were not really talking at that point. And yeah. And then we came to see you, and yeah, you were a godsend. I mean, you always have been, but yeah.
Well, why don't you, um, okay, I'll tell my audience that, prior to getting Jay on the show, well, we were discussing, like, because he had referred a client to me, and we were discussing this client a little bit, and he said, yeah, Luella, when I knew that she needed help, I thought of you right away. And he said something to me in that short conversation, that he said something like, yeah, well, the way you threw me underneath the bus, during the session. And I was like, I didn't really have time to get into it, like, on that call with you, Jay. But after I hung up the phone, I thought, why did he say that? Like, what did I do? And then, so just prior to pressing record here, I asked Jay what he meant by that. And then he reminded me of what went on. So Jay, why don't you explain what happened in that first session?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, you threw me under the bus, and it was the best thing you could have ever done. We got in, and you and I had spoken on the phone. So I was half expecting that. First off, I was expecting that she wouldn't even sit through the entire hour. I figured that something would be said, and she would just get up, leave, and that would be it. Mm-hmm. And it was already a fight to get her there. And when we got in, you introduced yourself, and we started to sit down, and you basically told me to shut up and let her talk. And so she did. And you the entire time, it was like a 2-on-1 cage match where I was just pinned down and taking punch after punch. And I remember leaving thinking to myself, like, what just happened? This is like, this is not what I expected. I basically just got blamed for the affair. I got blamed for everything that could have led up to it. And while some of it sure was probably fair, I didn't get a word in edgewise. And I was about to call my friend that had referred me to say, like, what are you doing to me? And you called. And I wasn't going to answer at first because I was not very happy.
No.
But I did.
And I probably sensed that stress on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely you did.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, that went well. I'm like, how did that go well? Like, what in what world did that go okay? And you just said, like, I had to do that. Otherwise, there was no way she was going to sit down and there was no way she was going to talk. She had to feel like I was on her side, and she had to feel like she was being heard.
Exactly. Validated.
Yeah. Validated. Yeah. And I remember I pulled over and I sat back and I was like, huh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I got off the phone a few minutes later, and I called my friend and I said, so here's what happened. And he's like, yeah, I knew that would happen. I said, why didn't you warn me? And he said, because if I did, that wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
And
Smart.
yeah. And I was like, you're right. She's awesome. And going back to see the second time, no fight. She was happy to go. And by the third or fourth time, she was willing to talk about moving forward in our marriage and no longer talking about just ending it and wanting to be with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And things started to transition, and we sat, I don't remember how many sessions we had with you, but we sat with you, and it was really weird because it went from she doesn't feel like she did anything wrong, no apology at all, entirely my fault, and wanting to leave, to, okay, I'm willing to work on this, to you then having to call me again after a session to say, okay, this next session is going to get tough. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, how could it possibly get tougher? It seems like it's going pretty well. And you said to me, because now you're going to have to be there to help her heal from the breakup with the guy she had the affair with. And I kind of slumped into the seat and just like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she's going to be grieving that, and you need to be okay with her sad days at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was possibly the toughest part of trying to reconcile that there was having to give her hugs and hold her while she was crying because she missed this other guy who she still worked with. And then kind of all hell broke loose again because she at the time was working for two of our best friends, and they found out about the affair, and both her and him got fired. So now she doesn't have a job, and she is no longer seeing this guy. And so we're trying to navigate all of that. And so it went from her just being done to, okay, maybe we'll give this a try, to, okay, let's work on this, but now I need to grieve this affair, to now all hell's broken loose and she lost her job where, well,
Well,
I still was sick and wasn't able to work, kind of thing.
exactly. And like
And
her job and
it,
her identity. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And you just kind of stuck through us with all of that. And we came out of it, and it was tough. I mean, it was, I look back on that, and I had to make the choice to trust her again. And we had a, yeah. And I mean, we had another kid, and I made the choice. It was tough, and there were definitely moments where I didn't. Um, but yeah, it was, you
It,
helped us through all of that.
yeah.
And
I must say, like, you're reminding me, like, it was one of the most um, challenging scenarios. And, you know, and then, also, like, we'll just say, stopped you from physically harming the man,
yeah,
which let's be honest. Every man that has gone through what you have gone through feels equally the same way.
right,
That's your first thought, is
yeah,
that I need to physically harm this man.
yeah,
So thankfully that didn't happen either.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, and
And
this is just like, it's nothing to apologize for. Like, it's a human
no,
response.
it,
Like,
it it is, but I think that's kind of the other, without going into too many details, that's kind of the other factor too, which was, I think, especially difficult, was that 99% of men that are going through this probably also don't have a work background like I do, where harming him would be a very easy possibility,
exactly.
and not a and not something that I likely would have struggled with after. So
Exactly.
yeah, no, that's, yeah, no, you definitely talked me off a few ledges, that's for sure. I
Mm.
yeah, I had a, yeah, it was tough. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember, like, it was a whole range of emotions, from, being sad and hurt and angry, to just also needing to vent. I remember sitting in your office, and just, it was one of our last sessions, and I just said to her, I said, I think I said this probably before too, but I'm willing to forgive this affair. I take quite a bit of responsibility for it, because I know that you weren't getting what you needed from me. But if this ever happens again, I'll be done.
Yeah.
I'll be gone, and that's it. And we had a couple of good years, and then sure enough, I, by pure accident, caught her having another affair, and I was gone that day, and I never went back.
Wow. And
And yeah, and
y-
I'm glad that I worked off. I have no regrets about doing everything that I could after that first one at all. None. I think I would regret if I didn't push so hard to try to work on things. And I
Mhm.
remember that second affair, like, it almost felt like we had just gotten to a really good place where I was no longer having to work to trust her or make an effort to trust her. And I just finally did trust her again. And it was just pure fluke that I caught her. And I remember confronting her with it. So, do you want me to go into that, or
Yeah, sure. I mean,
yeah,
this is, I mean, like I say, your situation is was quite
yeah.
something. Yeah.
So I was back at work at this point, and I had a meet with somebody from work that I needed to talk to, and my normal surveillance guy, we'll just put it all out there,
Hmm.
uh, wasn't available. So I ended up calling a friend of mine who had previously offered to help, and he was great, and he came with me to the meet. He did a decent job, and after the meet was over, he brought back the surveillance kit, and he just came by the house and put the bag in the hallway and just kind of forgot about it. And then a couple of days later, I went to go and grab the footage from it and realized that instead of there being like a 15-20 minute recording, there was hours and hours and hours of it. I was like, what is
Mm.
going on? Well, he had forgot, I don't know if he forgot or if he just didn't know how, but he didn't turn the recorder off. He had left it, and it was set to an automatic mode where it would automatically start to record anytime it heard any sound or anytime that it had any motion. And even though it was in the bag, it was still picking up sound. So
Oh.
there was recording after recording after recording. So I ended up having to go through them in order to find the right one. And as I'm going through them, it's just basic stuff like my kids playing or the dog barking or whatever it is.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I get to one and I hear a guy's voice. And I don't recognize it. I'm like, what? And so I listen a little bit further and then I hear her voice. And so I'm like, okay. So I skip and I go to the next recording. But this recording, same thing. And I'm like, okay, that's odd. And this recording is not short. Like, it's not like it was a delivery guy that just popped in type thing.
Right.
So I just listened for a bit. And sure enough, it is her and him talking about their affair and about when I'll be out next. And,
Oh my gosh.
um,
I didn't
well,
know that. Oh my
yeah,
God.
I mean, having sex and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And she was upstairs at the time, and I just grabbed the recorder and I kind of just stormed into the room and was like, do you have something to tell me? What's going on, kind of thing. And as I'm standing there with this recording device, she's telling me nothing happened.
Mm.
Are you like, I could play
Hmm.
this for you right now. I know it's happening. And she went from saying, nope, nothing's happened, to, well, it's just a friend, to, well, nothing was happening. We were just talking about it, to, okay. And yeah. And I packed my bag right then, went to my parents' house, never went back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've now been divorced, I guess, about a year now, and separated for 4. And I've never been happier.
Yeah. Wow.
No.
Well, quite the story. Like, I mean, like you said, I mean, because it's only because, you're in that surveillance business and that's another good point to bring up too. Like the whole trust piece. I mean, you could have been obsessed with this. I mean, you could have purposely I mean, I don't know why, I mean, women, if you're going to have an affair, like, don't be married to somebody that's in the surveillance business. Like, it's not a good idea, as you can
Well,
see.
you know what though? It was by pure fluke, and even after, to this day, I've never listened to the full tape, and I've never listened to the other ones.
No.
Deleted them. I didn't have any need to know. I suspect that there were others. I'm sure of it. But after the first one, like when the first one happened, I was angry and I was upset and I dumped her phone. So I knew everything that happened.
Mhm.
But after the second one, I was done. That was
Yeah.
it. And I mean, I'm no longer, I mean, sorry, I want to clarify. I'm not in the surveillance business. It's a part of the job that I do.
Okay.
But when I used to be a private investigator years ago, and whenever I would get calls from people, and this was before the affair, but whenever I would get calls from people that would say, "Hey, I mean, I think my partner's having an affair," I'd say, well, like, I'm not taking the job. I guarantee, like, I've never received a call, and I think any private investigator that's worth their salt will say this, but I had never received a single call from a partner that actually thought their spouse was having an affair where it wasn't actually happening. Typically,
Mm.
every case it is. And if it's not, then there are some trust issues that you've got to figure out before you hire somebody to do surveillance. So no,
Hmm.
it never even, it never even occurred to me to surveil her or to record or anything like that. It was by pure fluke that my normal guy was not there, and my friend that filled in didn't turn off the recording device, and it just happened to pick it up.
Yeah. It's like clearly meant to be,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And now you reminded me that I did recommend a couple other women your
Mhm.
name. I referred you to a
Yeah.
couple of other my yeah,
Uh,
and
a
one did, and it you
couple did.
proved. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
oh, you're right.
yeah.
Yeah. And you proved it both, right?
One of them went a bit sideways, but the other one, yeah, the other one, it was. Uh, she I don't think affairs were the issue. I think it was more just what he was
Oh,
doing,
participating. Exactly. You're
what he
right.
was participating
Yeah.
in. He
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
he needed some help, that's for sure, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure she was the one to give it to him, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, they divorced since.
yeah,
So
I
you
thought
yeah.
they would.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah, and no, God, like I mean, you're making me think of so many different things. First of all, I want to go back to, what I mean, I loved what you said to the pastor. I thought that's brilliant. I've never, it's
well,
sort of you're very self-aware.
I think men have two brains, a big one and a little one, and when they start thinking,
Yes.
they stop using the big one, and it's about eliminating that possibility. It's about making sure that it's not um possible. Although with that said, I mean, I after my marriage ended, I was in a relationship where I was encouraged to see other people. Um and even though I had the ability, I had zero interest
Yeah.
at all. Wasn't even something I mean, I have enough trouble keeping one person happy. But yeah, no, I just it my view on that a little bit has changed. I am absolutely monogamous. There's not. It's not something I want. But
No.
yeah, no, I think. But I mean, things happen, right? I mean, if you put yourself in a position where you find somebody attractive and you're going to spend time with them, it's possible that something comes of that and something happens, and it's about eliminating that possibility. It's what comes down to loyalty.
You're right. Like it's being like, first of all, being self-aware, and then setting that intention, which you did, which you reminded me of another couple that I had, like similar age to you, like your genre, like your,
Yeah.
yeah, your friend group sort of thing. They were both lawyers, and yeah, she had an affair in the office. um like they all worked in the same office, and she had an affair, and I like this couple, hope, I don't know if they're together or not anymore, but like I was quite amazed at the man, and I had to give him a lot of respect in the sense that it was sort of like he decided, well, I guess you did as well. I mean, he decided right from the beginning, I'm going to trust her from now on. And like, it's not an option not to trust her. And he was very, you know, very, yeah, pragmatic about it. But he also said the same thing. And this is like, if he had any frustration with her, like he was very ready to forgive her and very ready to move on with their marriage and their life. But he did say something to her, and it was more how exactly what you did. He says, I'm very intentional. I don't put myself into those situations where I'm hanging out at the water cooler talking to, Martha, who's incredibly pretty, or
Yep.
whatever. I mean, he says, I just don't do that. And he was baffled as in terms of why she would even entertain, the flirtatious behavior, let's say, of this colleague. It's sort of,
Yep.
he's like, why?
Well, I've through work and then in general, I've dealt with a number of cheating spouses, and the one thing that keeps coming up, or the one thing I keep hearing and keep seeing, I guess, is when it comes to women that have affairs, it always starts out as a friendship in their mind, or at least that's what they say. And nine
Mm-hmm.
times the husband or their partner says, well, I knew it way before, and I kept telling her it's more than just a friendship.
Yeah.
And oh no, he's just a nice guy. And for my ex, it started like she said, as a friendship, and then they would go for walks at lunch, and then it just built from there. And I remember years ago, I worked on a trading floor, and there was a woman that I worked with who was very attractive, but I didn't go for walks. I didn't
No.
go for lunch. I didn't grab a drink after work unless it was with a group of people. Um, and I think there's also, I guess maybe with the Me Too movement as well, there's a certain understanding that men have, I think, that we have to be careful, not just about what we say and who we say it to and how we say it, but we have to be careful not to put ourselves in situations where something can get flipped,
Mm-hmm.
and not, having a closed door meeting one on one, and just being cognizant of the fact that it's important to ensure, not just for us, but I mean, you hear about it nonstop with a woman being either, harassed at the office or assaulted at the office, and
Yeah.
whatever it is. And it's important to make sure that whoever you're working with is also comfortable. And I can't foresee any scenario where I would be at the water cooler or in a closed door meeting or for drinks one on one or going for walks, things like that, where I would feel comfortable unless it was moving into a relationship scenario, if that makes any sense.
Totally. Like
So
that's
I think,
called being intelligent. Like, I mean, you
yeah,
know,
I just, yeah, I mean, I guess if I was to say to anyone listening, if you're a married woman and there's a guy at your office being nice to you, that's awesome. But he's not being nice to you because he wants to be friends. He's
right.
not, he's not, he has friends. He's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and if he wants to be friends, awesome. Suggest that him and his wife get together with you and your husband. And to guys, if your wife is going for walks with a guy at work or getting flowers where it's
Mm-hmm.
he's just being a nice guy, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Luella, he's
Mm-hmm.
not.
Right. Well, like, and you're making me think about like, the difference between men and women in general. Like, I mean, you mentioned like the Me Too movement and how, men are very aware of, sexual harassment and things like that and are going to abide by those rules. But I think also what you're speaking about is women women are equally very powerful and
Mm,
they inherently they know their power in terms of seduction and that ability to nurture. I mean, this is inherent within us, like our magnetism, ability to seduce, and this nurturing ability that we have. That, let's face it, any man would crave. So
mhm,
like, again, a smart man is not going to put themselves in that vicinity of receiving sort of that energy, because they know that they could easily be pulled right into that. um so this whole like equality, like, I mean, it's it, yeah, and like, again, it's sort of like, and women, like, I can see how, let's say the guy is saying that he had a big argument with his wife last night and how he's feeling really bummed out about it. It's a natural tendency for us to kind of go, oh, let me help you through that, like, and then so, but like, men, if any woman at the office, is saying that to you, like, do you not get into that? Like, book a therapy appointment and just like, get all your emotions out there. Like, I mean, and that's what it was. Like, your ex, that's why I gave her tons of validation, in those first few sessions, because, well, let's face it, she was very emotionally um deficient, right? And she needed that validation of all her burdening that was upon her, as sort of being the provider in the family in many ways, and taking care of the children, etc. And I mean, she needed that validation to feel like, yeah, because I mean, like, whoever had the affair, I mean, obviously that's a very, very scary first session to have, because I mean, they are the evil. They see
yeah,
themselves as completely evil and horrible, horrible people. So um but once, yeah, they step into the office and see that, well, you know I can, it's sort of like, I can see your point, I could see and why you would do this. It's like, yeah. And it wasn't in quote unquote intentional, but it happened. So let's
but
just deal with it.
yeah, but I think the other thing, the part that bothered me more than the affair occurring, is that affairs don't just occur. You don't just walk into
Yeah.
the person's office and both your pants fall down and you start having
Mhm.
sex. It's not a
Mhm.
porno.
Mhm.
It's it builds up. And the moment that in her case, she was out for a walk and they kissed. And the moment that happened is
Yeah,
the moment that it should have got shut down immediately.
totally. Yeah.
And that's the part that bothered me, is that it's not that that's the case. If she genuinely thought he was just being a friend, then that should have been the end all be all word, like no more walks. I need to go call my husband and let him know what just happened.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah.
And that didn't stop. It just kept going. And the thing is that there are those moments. You make a decision every time you go on the walk, every time you kiss someone, every time you go on a date. And, for her, it was early meetings and late meetings, right? In the parking lot. And
Yeah.
the
No,
thing,
that's 100% intentional.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that is intentional. But you know what? Nobody marries the person they had the affair with. And in the end, it disrupts your entire life. If your own partner can't trust you, who can?
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember talking to somebody, and they work in HR in the United States. And one of the questions that they always asked, which I don't think here it's legal, but there it is have you ever had an affair? Have you ever cheated on a partner? And if the person said yes, automatic non-hire, because if your own partner cannot trust you, who can?
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And, speaking about trust, I mean, we use that word. There's so much, there's so much, I don't know, impact. Like the word trust, it's sort of to give somebody your trust and for them to break that is just like, it's almost like nothing worse can happen, because it's not that more or less, you can not trust that person anymore. It's a statement about yourself. It's sort of
Mhm.
because you're kind of going, I I trusted myself to make a good choice when I chose to marry this person, right? Like you're sort of, it's all about you. It's like,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of thinking, if I can't trust myself making a decision when I choose the partner for my life, what what's the other thing I'm going to fail at? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, so, but it shows you how you grew. Yeah, it shows you how you grew, like because the next time it's like, no, 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 no. I love myself way, way too much for this. I'm
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, it wasn't, it was just, if it happens again, there is no trust. That's it. The first
Right.
time I took responsibility, I was sick. I wasn't being able to, I wasn't able to help in the house. I wasn't fulfilling what I had promised to give her. I took
Mhm.
responsibility for a lot of that. She didn't get what she needed from me. She went elsewhere for it. And it was up to me to try and to try to work on that, try to give her what she needed. And I did work on that, and I did everything I possibly could. And I'm happy because I can stand by that. But as soon as it happened again, that was it. There was no way I was ever going to be able to trust her again. And I was done, and I was gone that day. And, everybody said you're going to go through a gamut of emotions with your marriage ending. I felt like from the minute I left, I felt like this huge boulder was off. Like I just, I felt great. And I didn't have any moment of sadness or regret or grieving. I feel like I got all that out after the first one. And I was done. I was
Yeah.
ready to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite interesting. Freedom is a word that's used a lot
Yeah.
after these sort of breakups. Yeah.
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 So I want to respect your time, and I'm going to let you go. And I just want the audience to know that the first couple, like the couple that referred Jay to me, they wonderful like result of them. They
Oh yeah.
they yeah recoupled stronger than ever.
Yeah.
Decided to have another baby late in their marriage, and wonderful. Love these people.
Oh,
Uh,
they're a great couple.
yeah, and then your scenario, and then the other couple that Jay referred me to, again uncoupled,
Yeah.
and he's also super
Oh, he
happy.
he is. Uh, do you have like? Do we have a minute just to
Oh,
quickly go?
100%.
I
Tell
I
me.
don't want to. I don't want to breach his confidentiality at all. So I'll
Yeah.
make it very short. But when his marriage ended, it was an on and off again thing, and we were all happy except for him. And he was a wreck, and he ended up going to stay with a friend of his, and turned out that this girl that he was best friends with in like high school and university lived right next door basically.
Oh,
And it turned out both of them had massive crushes on each other when they were in school, but neither of them was brave enough to tell the other. And she had also just ended up separating from her husband, and they have been together ever since. And it's been it's been a few years now, and they're like they are the definition of, you know what, screw it, they are the best couple I've ever seen in my life. I'm sure
wow.
they have issues, but he's my closest friend. I talk to him about everything, and she's amazing, and yeah, they are just so perfect for each other. It's unbelievable, and it's kind of like yeah, you could make a movie about them.
Oh,
But if his marriage hadn't have ended, he wouldn't have been staying right next door to her.
well, that makes me so happy. Oh, awesome.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much though for everything. I mean, I tell you this regularly, you're a rock star, and I'll keep sending anyone your way that I think will benefit. But yeah, anything you need ever, don't hesitate to let me know.
I really, really appreciate you, as every one of my clients, to I mean to work with someone whose emotional health, is just an absolute roller coaster during these times. To trust me is a real honor. So thank you so much for doing this. I think it's very, very helpful for people
Uh,
who are listening. And one other thing, because maybe I missed this, but how did you find out about the first um, affair?
the first affair she
Yeah.
told me about.
Oh,
Yeah,
she actually
yeah,
told you. Okay, so yeah, you got to respect that too.
yeah,
Yeah, because I just wanted to mention, for most people, it's definitely the phone, the iPad, um, like a name just pops up, on the phone. So, uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no, I had walked. Sorry, I thought I mentioned it, but maybe not. I had walked into the bedroom, and she said she needed to tell me something, but then she went stone cold quiet,
yeah,
and I just knew. I saw it all over her face, and I just said, "Did you have an affair?" And she nodded yes, and I said, "Was it with him?" And she nodded yes, and then that was it.
that was it. Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Okay, well, have a wonderful week, everyone. And Jay, again, thanks, and we'll be in touch.
yeah. Thank you so much for your time, and I just want to say very, very quickly, I've seen a lot of therapists over the years. None of them have come close to Luella.
Hmm.
You're the best there is, and yeah, anybody would be very lucky to be one of your clients.
Aw, thanks so much. And just so everybody knows, I did not pay him.
All right,
Okay.
so take care.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.